down to the final quarter. Illinois lawmakers make moves in the battle to keep the Bears from leaving for Indiana. Fallout from President Trump's racist Friday tweet. We visit with Illinois Congressman Jackson, who prayed with the president just hours before. The crypto crisis. Are Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies biting the dust? And welcome to the Chicago Report. I'm Schutz. Well, that was a not so entertaining Super Bowl. And of course, everybody has their hot takes on the halftime performance. But the Super Bowl of Bears stadiums is coming down to the final few drives of the fourth quarter. Today, it's Illinois' turn on offense as lawmakers here have signaled some progress. We all know the Bears would love to host a Super Bowl in a new stadium. The question is, will it be in Arlington Heights, Illinois, or Hammond, Indiana? Representatives from the governor's office, legislative leaders, and the Bears are close to an agreement on major issues to move forward in Arlington Heights, according to sources close to the talks. The sources say there is an agreement in principle on two key issues: public financing for infrastructure and the so-called pilot bill that would give the Bears and other mega developers the ability to negotiate property tax rates directly with the municipality. The sources say there are ongoing negotiations on givebacks for taxpayers, as well as affordability options on ticket prices. Bears CEO Kevin Warren says the team can't move forward without the legislation, and has vowed the team will foot all of the costs related to building the stadium. Today, Governor Pritzker sounded optimistic about the direction of talks.
There's a lot of discussion, a lot of ongoing conversation with the Bears, and indeed, frankly, progress that's been made. So I'm pleased about that. But, I'm going to let the Bears talk about what it is that they want to get done and how they want to get it done.
But are Illinois lawmakers making their moves too late in the game? Indiana's counterparts have already passed their bill out of the state Senate and are planning to move it in the state House as well. Indiana's Republican Governor Mike Braun has announced his support. That bill would create a public authority that would finance all or part of a new stadium, with the Bears paying rent. Sources close to the team say the only Hoosier State site is near Wolf Lake, right across the border in Hammond. Indiana lawmakers have said they plan to pass their bill by the end of their legislative session, February 27th. Illinois State Rep Cam Buckner, part of the state's negotiations here, say that doesn't factor into his thinking.
But we are not in competition with them as far as I'm concerned. What we're doing is having the conversations to make sure we can fine-tune what needs to happen in order for there to be a deal here in this state that works for everybody.
So could we see a decision in the coming weeks? We'll have to wait and see. And now to some news coming out of the Capitol today. A handful of U.S. congressmen got a glimpse at the unredacted version of the latest batch of Epstein files. That began today. Members of the Judiciary Committee, they had priority to view the documents, but they can't bring electronic devices with them. Illinois U.S. Senator Dick Durbin is the ranking member on the Judiciary Committee. No word on whether he saw the files today. But the House's ranking member, Democratic Maryland Representative Jamie Raskin, told reporters that what he read was astonishing.
When you read through these files and you read about 15-year-old girls, 14-year-old girls, 10-year-old girls, I saw mention of a 9-year-old girl. I went over there and I was able to determine, at least I believe, that there were tons of completely unnecessary redactions in addition to the failure to redact the names of victims, and so that's troubling to us.
And Raskin went on to say he's worried Americans are underreacting to these developments. He says the Department of Justice should investigate to identify and prosecute co-conspirators. And even one of the Super Bowl ads took aim at Attorney General Pam Bondi, featuring some of Epstein's alleged victims demanding the truth.
We're standing together.
Standing together.
Because this girl deserves the truth.
Because she deserves the truth.
Because we all deserve the truth.
So more to come on this, and more fallout, as we mentioned, from President Trump's retruth of a racist image on Friday. Trump refused to take the blame for a cartoon depicting former President Obama and First Lady Michelle as animated apes. But Chicago's Cardinal Blaise Cupich says he wants an apology. Supich issued a statement condemning the video and said Trump should apologize regardless of whether his staff member posted it erroneously. Quote, portraying human beings as animals, less than human, is not new. It was a common way in past centuries for politicians and others to demean immigrant groups. A few days ago, we saw that in the White House. Such blatant racism is not merely a practice of the past. Nothing less than an unequivocal apology to the nation and to the persons demeaned is acceptable. We know President Trump, after several changes, of course, in messaging, did not apologize, but did condemn the message. And hours before that shocking post, the president shared the stage with Illinois Democratic Congressman Jonathan Jackson at the National Prayer Breakfast in D.C.
We pray that he would be mindful of the poor and that he would be invested in the alleviation of suffering happening on farms in the Midwest, in the families preparing to bury their loved ones in Minneapolis. Remind him that we are all Americans, all made in the image of God, and that none of us are free unless all of us have our freedoms protected.
And that, of course, was the same morning that that tweet went out. And joining us now is Congressman Jonathan Jackson from Washington, D.C. Hey, Congressman, thanks for talking to us. First, I want to ask you about that moment. You offered some subtle criticism of the president there in that prayer as he was just inches behind you. What was that moment like?
Right. Well, I wouldn't say that it was criticism. We've all sinned, all fallen short of the glory of God. Of course, we know that in Scripture. He is the most powerful person on earth. He is a person that has bombed in Nigeria and Iran. He has been very demeaning and very dehumanizing of the migrant community. He's also done some things that are quite remarkable in looking behind the prison walls and looking for prison reform and has pardoned people. And so none of us are beyond the scope of prayer. And the president, I think he has some very unsophisticated, untalented people around him. And the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who asked for the elimination of diversity, equity, and inclusion. First of all, it's against the law, who's renamed our Department of Defense the Department of War. They've cut the SNAP, the food assistance, the housing assistance, the health assistance. But right now, if some way the Lord can touch his heart, soften his heart like a Pharaoh, that he can see the shortcomings of his ways and will move us toward a more peaceful path. Right now, 75 countries have been banned from coming into the United States. We see the aggression of ICE. And so I'm very appreciative of the Catholic Church and Cardinal Supich and the Pope. The religious community is weighing in, and they seem to have an enormous amount of influence over him. And we have to go full speed and ask God to help intervene.
Well, and that's interesting. He was right behind you. He had his head down. I don't know if he was fully paying attention to everything you were saying there, but you had a brief exchange where you shook hands. What did you guys say to each other?
Well, he said to me, "Great job." I said, "Thank you."
Well, very short.
But as members, we don't get a chance to talk to the president. So I do believe members of the 1st District, constituents, have sent me here to take every opportunity, how I can, where I can, get in front of him, tell him and plead with him about the challenges of the poor. People in the 1st District and across the state, the nation, they're hungry, they're hurting. Families are moving into fear. That's not the Spirit of God. I started off the prayer saying Imago Dei in the Latin and Verbum Dei. And DEI simply in Latin, when I went to Catholic school, DEI, Dei, capital D, little e, little I, means of God. So we're all made in the image of God. This is the word of God, Verbum Dei. So I don't know how they can say they're against DEI.
That's an interesting use of those letters. And yes, Dei, the Latin meaning of God. I also went to Catholic school, Congressman. I remember a couple of things, not everything, but a few things. Then how did you react then on that same night after you offered that prayer that post came out?
Oh, it was disgusting. It was heart-wrenching. I know he has an inability to apologize in that regard. But then there's Republican Senator Tim Scott. This is the first time he's seen something racist in the administration. So he says this was racist. So that was shocking. President Trump's response was not that. That was very concerning. And so even if he didn't do it, in leadership, you take responsibility and then you offer up the person that did it so you can fire them. So if he didn't do it, then fire the person. So it has to be discovered. And I think more and more people are outraged. I was also delighted to see that 7 members of the United States Senate they denounced it immediately. 5 members of the House, they denounced it immediately. So that was an enormous break from the current standard operating procedure around here, that they've like condemned those words. They were very offensive, very hurtful. And this goes back to Jim Crow, 1840s, where pseudoscience said that African Americans did not have the cerebral cortex to be human. They were still debating in these same chambers across the street from us whether or not African Americans were even human. There were still petting zoos across the United States. They were still colonizing and capturing countries and selling people. People are still being imported. They've been kidnapped from West Africa. So to go back into calling people less than human being is pretty disgusting. And beneath the character and the stature of our government.
Very, very painful images being brought up when something like that is shared. It's just an unbelievable time right now. Congressman, we mentioned earlier in the show some of your colleagues getting these unredacted views of the Epstein files. I know you've said on this show you've been pushing for the release and more transparency in Epstein. Have you learned anything new? Are there names in there that the public will know about, will hear about, that will be unredacted at some point?
I don't think so. You have the Attorney General's office that's now controlled by the presidency, the FBI. I don't know why so many members of the Senate confirmed all of the picks for all the judicial branches and the executive branches, knowing what he had done before on January 6th. That was simply wrong. And so they've conceded those levers of power. But what I have learned from people that are on the judiciary, and it was quite heart-wrenching, some things in this office you wish you could unhear and unsee, is the amount of teenagers, both girls and boys. And so it's pretty more sordid and more disgusting. And victims need to be believed. Children should be heard. Women should be respected and honored. And this has taken an act of Congress in order to get this information out. So who's being protected? So I hope that when this ring is finally broken and the other co-conspirators like Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell has said are brought to justice, that people know no matter how rich, how wealthy, how powerful you are, you cannot be above the law. And no one, no matter how poor, no matter how destitute, should be buried beneath the law. So it's time that we make this a better nation. And there's too much child abuse, too much sex trafficking. And this was on an entire unbelievable scale of the debauchery that was going on. And
again, I think the American people are just not getting the full truth of how many powerful men or how many powerful people in general are caught up in this. But a lot of revelations of the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, he did not tell the truth about his association. There are revelations that they went into business together. He visited the island. There's some bipartisan calls for Lutnick to step down. Do you think the House might force an impeachment vote on the Commerce Secretary?
Right. When you said that he didn't tell the truth, you mean that he was lying? I don't think that we should try to sanitize some of these words, Paris. And this just wasn't about the Epstein file. This was sex brokering. This was buying and selling of children. This was pimping, through a whole nother level. We have to talk in levels that make it clear. This was absolutely disgusting. No, and Mr. Lutnick, he lied. And so we should call it for what it is. This was not being untruthful. This wasn't misdirection. That he was a business partner. He knows him well, probably knows him one of the best relationships that he's had. And, the same thing is going on in Europe, but the different with the King's family in Norway, they're outing people and eliminating them. With the British family, they're taking people's titles and stripping them, although they should be prosecuting people that have put their hands on these children. And they're eliminating people throughout government. All of Europe. European is embroiled in a scandal of this epic proportion, but they're moving on it. Right. Here, people are doing the same thing, but they're being protected.
Right. It does seem like the UK, there are consequences, but so far not so much here. Congressman Jackson, thank you so much for joining us from D.C. tonight. We appreciate it. Take care now. And when we come back, crypto investors are worried, even though President Trump said that he would be the greatest president ever for crypto. Why that's not coming to fruition just yet, right after this. Welcome back. Is the crypto bubble showing signs of popping? Bitcoin rose a bit today after several months of falling prices, leading even the staunchest crypto enthusiasts to wonder, is this going to go all the way to zero? And joining us now are Juan Leon, Senior Investment Strategist at Bitwise Asset Management, and Joe Duarte, the author of the recent book, Cryptocurrency 101, as well as several other books. Thank you guys for joining us for this discussion. Joe, I'll start with you. Since you wrote the book, you know, we see these dips and people get nervous, but then Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies recover and they rise ever higher. Does it feel different this time?
It probably does if you are in the middle of it. But if you look back at history, there's been multiple crashes. There was even a crash, I think, in 2023 when it lost 86% of its value. So you have to be able to put these things into context.
And that's 86%. That's quite a crash. And then it went back up over 100,000. And Juan Leon, you know, there are crypto investors who supported Trump and are now criticizing him due to market volatility. They thought that some of these moves he's made would stabilize the industry. What are you hearing from investors?
Well, many investors, sure, no one likes to see the prices going down. But the reality is that President Trump and his administration have done things to push the industry forward. Last year, we got the first piece of crypto legislation, the Stablecoin Act, that is enabling stablecoin payments to go mainstream. And as Joe was mentioning, we've been here before. We've seen many cycles where Bitcoin has been down 70, 80%. Right now, we're down 55%. And in many of our products, we've seen inflows even through this downturn. So we see some people, mainly retail, selling, but many institutional investors that we work with are looking at this as a really great entry point for a long-term allocation. Many of the wirehouses got approval to allocate when the prices were much higher than this. And so many of the advisors did not think they were going to be able to have an opportunity to allocate at prices this advantageous.
All right, so Joe Duarte, you know, despite some of those pieces of legislation that the president signed, stablecoin, the strategic crypto reserve, Bitcoin erased all gains since the president's election. Why has that happened?
Well, I mean, you have to understand that Bitcoin doesn't respond like other asset classes. For example, you know, stocks, interest rates drop and stocks tend to rise. Crypto and Bitcoin especially just respond to supply and demand. In other words, if there are more people that want to buy crypto, then the price eventually goes up. If there's more people who want to sell it, it will fall. I mean, that's probably the centerpiece of why crypto is so volatile and so different. It's purely a supply and demand type of scenario.
Yeah, and you always hear the phrase "buy the dip." A lot of investors are bullish on buying the dip when this happens. But Juan, are investors more nervous now than they typically are with not only Bitcoin but the other cryptocurrencies that are going through this volatility?
Some investors certainly are, but many of them really see the progress that has been made in the industry over the years. Crypto has become more institutionalized. There's many more established financial institutions that are coming into the space. Stable coins are taking off, tokenization are taking off, regulation is coming in. The head of the SEC has said he wants to move financial markets onto blockchain rails over the coming years. So there's a lot to look forward to, and many professional investors are looking at the space and seeing this as a long-term opportunity.
So long-term opportunity, a lot of things perhaps coming down the pike. But Joe, is it fair to say that Bitcoin and crypto hasn't caught on as a replacement currency to so-called fiat currency as quickly as some folks have wanted? Because to me, it still seems like it's just an appreciable asset, but it's not being used quite as widespread for currency as perhaps folks might have predicted 10 years ago.
There's two ways to look at that. Number one, if you look at crypto itself, it's legal tender in some places. For example, El Salvador, sure, it's not France or Saudi Arabia or what you would consider, major financial places, but it is legal tender in some places. The other thing is that the real progress is likely to be made in stable coins over time as more and more people become comfortable with using them for everyday expenses. And I think for the average person, crypto is more about stable coins than perhaps the investing.
So maybe Bitcoin, Ethereum, these coins, the early entrants, but stable coin, maybe the thing that'll take off. But you both mentioned stable coin. Juan, I'm wondering if you could, for our viewers that aren't as familiar, explain exactly what that is.
Yeah, stablecoins are digital dollars that run on top of blockchains. So those digital dollars are, by being on blockchain networks, they are able to move around the world for transaction purposes much faster than our current banking system that is siloed to banks doing transfers across the world. So it really is an innovation that allows dollars to move faster around the world. And those dollars are backed by treasury collateral. So that gives them a sound backing. And now that there's legislation propelling them forward, it really is a new avenue for growth of the financial system backed by US dollars.
Yeah, you should also point out that stable coins are constructed so that their value stays close to $1.
And the obvious question for me then is, it wasn't the point of crypto, though, to not be tied to any kind of nation's currency?
Well, yeah, and that's still the point of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is untethered to any centralized government or institution. It has a limited supply, so it really is a store of value akin to maybe a digital gold. But that's separate from stablecoins. Stablecoins are backed by US dollars for the mechanism of payment services. So it really is an evolving digital ecosystem with different use cases. And you have your digital gold with Bitcoin to protect you and to act as a hedge against the debasement of fiat currencies, but you still have your transaction mechanism through stablecoins.
That's interesting. So there's all kind of different manner of crypto here. Joe, Juan mentioned some of that legislation. There's the Clarity Act. It stalled in the Senate. It passed in the House. Are these pieces of legislation good for the market?
Well, I mean, again, it all depends. If you're a crypto diehard, then you don't want the government messing around with your cryptocurrency. But the rest of the world is not as patient when there's all these scams that occasionally happen. These hacks of these major places where the crypto trading takes place. So what we're looking at here is some sort of balance. We want to be able to have the independence of cryptocurrency as it was originally intended, but at the same time, you want to have some safety built in.
And Juan, speaking of scams and stuff, I mean, there's a lot of smoke here. The Wall Street Journal has reported on the United Arab Emirates buying $500 million into the Trump family's crypto venture. A lot of smoke in terms of whether this could be pay to play, corruption. Do investors worry about things like this and whether the president has got his thumb on the scales here to perhaps benefit himself or people close to him?
Yeah, all of those details are unclear, and they'll have to emerge over time what the links or not are. I think for investors looking at the space as an opportunity for investment, they're looking at the technology itself and what it's solving. And they really see the ability for crypto to upgrade our financial system. And that has nothing to do with what the president is doing. The technology is getting adopted for its efficiency, for its ability to create new financial applications, for its ability to hedge against risks like fiscal instability. And so those are all use cases that professional investors are really what they're paying attention to.
Joe, what about you? I mean, is there concern that the president, by getting so involved in this, and then you read these stories about his family making all this money in their crypto ventures, is there something untoward going on?
The truth is, I don't know. But you have to be able to like Juan said, these things will eventually play out. My concern is I'm a trader. I'm an investor. If I make a crypto trade, is it going to go through? If it goes up, can I cash it in for a profit? If it goes down, can I sell it? And is there someone on the other side that's going to take the trade? All these things are dependent on your point of view, or where you are in the chain of things.
All right. Well, this is a fascinating discussion. Some of it over my head a little bit as a novice to crypto, but my thanks to Juan Leon and Joe Duarte. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Appreciate you joining us. And you have questions or comments, you have a story you want us to look into, email me at parisonpolitics@fox.com. Plus, we've got some big Chicago Report candidate forums coming up, including the race for Senate, the race on the GOP side for the gubernatorial nomination, the race for 9th Congressional District to replace Jan Schakowsky. A lot of hot races here. We are soliciting questions from the public, so send your questions to that email, not to mention the race for Cook County Assessor, Cook County Board President. We're going to do all of it here starting in a couple weeks on Chicago Report, but that is it for us tonight. As always, keep up with all the news you need to know at fox32chicago.com and with the Fox Local app. And we are back same time tomorrow. Good night.